Hey guys, and welcome to the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report, the first podcast to bring you the local fishing report, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. I think there might be some ugly weather coming up, Joe. What you think, man?
Nope, just don't even talk about it.
I know. I hope that thing stays far, far away. I hate for the people in Florida and down there in Puerto Rico and all that, but man, we do not need it here for us either.
No, we get our fair share.
We do.
We can go somewhere else.
Yeah, give us a little break up here.
Yep. That's a fact. That's a fact. Man, how's your week been? It looks like we got a pretty exciting weekend coming up. 2 more days of snapper season for everybody. Y'all don't forget, if you're fishing on Sunday, to renew your fishing license and pick up that reef permit. It'll be good for 12 months. So you'll be good to go for all throughout the fall, winter, spring, and next summer. Butch, I saw your brother smoke some giant grouper last week.
He did. I think I was over the weekend. Maybe Saturday or Sunday they had an overnight trip. Maybe they got back Saturday evening. But yeah, either way, those grouper looked dang near as long as that swordfish.
Yeah, it looked like they picked up a swordfish on the, I guess, I don't know if they caught it at night or deep dropping, but man, talk about a grade of groupers. That was exciting for me to see. Here along Alabama, it seems like our snapper fishing's awesome, but grouper, something we got to go a little bit further out, do a little deep dropping or get a little further over to the east. And to really get into those fish, and I love seeing some big grouper hit the deck.
Me too, man. I honestly hadn't even got the story. He's been jammed up busy, and I've been busy. I don't know how deep they were. I was hoping to talk to him today to get the report, but he's on a 6 to 6, 12-hour.
That's what I say too when I'm on grouper like that. Nah, man, I ain't got time for that report this week. Sorry about that.
That's right. What grouper?
What grouper? Oh, well.
Who's bringing us a show this week, man? Let's get into this thing. Let's get it going.
Yeah, man, Butch, we got a really good fishing report today. We got real fishing reports, some good, some bad, all made possible by the support of our local businesses. This week's sponsor is your local Geico insurance office. Everybody knows Geico has great auto rates, but did you know they also have great rates on boats, ATVs, motorcycles, and personal watercraft? Give Ron Davis a call at 251-445-0053. Not only will Ron work hard to get you the lowest premium possible, but you'll have the service you can expect and count on if you ever need to make a claim. Geico does even more than insure your valuable items. They also offer on-the-water services like towing, battery jumps, gas delivery, and you can save by bundling these services with your insurance. If you're an Alabama saltwater fisherman, support the local insurance agent who helps bring you this fishing report each week. Call Ron Davis, Geico agent, at 251-445-0053 or visit him online at geico.com/mobile-al. All right, man. Who we got first?
I think let's head on down to the old Pier Pounder 2 weeks in a row this week. Let's see what David Thornton's doing. What you say, Captain David? I know you guys have been fishing down on the pier, and I think the ACFA has a big tournament coming up, right? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's right, Butch. The first Thursday in September, the ACFA will have their September meeting, and that following Saturday will be our tournament. And Spanish mackerel will be one of the categories this month. And in addition to the usual suspects, the inshore species, speckled trout, flounder, redfish, and also white trout. It'll be a lot of fun. We'll have a fish fry this month that'll be at the American Legion down on Dauphin Island Parkway near
David,
Fowl River.
Do you have to be an ACFA member to fish in the tournaments?
To fish in the tournament actively, yes. We like it when members, go fishing with non-members. We just ask them to keep their fish marked separately or something so that, they can tell them the difference when they come to the weigh-in.
Right.
And everybody's on their honor. We don't fish for money or big prizes or anything like that. It's we hand out plaques after each tournament, and the kids are really fond of that too. And also we work for tournament points that are accumulated throughout the tournament year, and then at the end of the year we award a tournament champion.
So
and then we also have
money.
Bragging rights.
Bragging rights is kind of a status in the fishing community. And Bobby Abruscato and Captain Patrick and have been longtime members of the club, and kind of they always talk about they're always fishing, or talking to some of the best trout fishermen that they know. There's a lot of knowledge there in that club, and a a lot of opportunities for people, especially getting started or new to the area, to, pick up some tips and find new friends. There was a guy that I met about 10 years ago, and he was looking for somebody to take him out boat fishing. So I just kind of teamed with him for a few years and helped him learn the ropes around inshore.
Man, that's awesome. That's a great resource. I mean, Butch, you lived in Virginia Beach for a while.
I was literally just thinking the same exact thing, man. If I could have joined something up whenever I moved away like that, it'd have been light years helpful.
Yeah. And I thought ahead. When I first joined or heard about it, I thought, what do I as a pier fisherman, shore fisherman, have to, offer with all these guys that are out every week, fishing for speckled trout? And there was 3 years in a row that I won the big fish contest, mostly fishing from the pier, and they were like really blown away by that. But the main thing is that there's so much knowledge that goes around within the group there and the membership, and both at the meetings and at the weigh-ins too. People fish in different places, different conditions, and everybody kind of compares notes and see who caught what and who's there drinking beer and who ate the most shrimp and all that good stuff. So it really kind of adds up after a while. And gee, I've been in it now for so long that they decided to elect me president this year. I was, really knocked back by that. So,
well, David,
it's been a great experience.
It sounds like you can hold your own with these speckled trout fishermen, regardless of if you got a boat or not. But we do bring you on here to talk about the pier fishing. You guys have got you got a little something new starting up on the pier, right? Yeah,
they're going to have a tournament for kids down here, down at an inaugural Salty Kids fishing tournament. And there's a Facebook page under Salty Kids that you can look at the info and all. It'll be the last Saturday in September, mainly geared towards helping kids, mentoring kids into the nuances of fishing. We're going to get some of the more experienced pier fishermen to help these kids. We've got about 3 dozen experienced anglers lined up to help these kids get into different aspects of fishing and pier fishing specifically, so that they can learn to hold their own when they go with their parents or, stuff like that. But I see so many families come down and they're fishing on the pier, and like mom and dad want to help, but they don't have any experience doing that. And they really kind of flounder around trying to figure it out for a few days.
Yeah, that's so cool, because when you take kids
flounder around, listen to David making jokes.
Yeah.
Pun intended, huh?
But no, that's a great thing. That'll be really cool. Glad you guys are doing that.
Like when you take kids out,
it'll be fun.
You've got to make it all about them, and you've got to have some thing. One of the hard parts about doing it on a boat is that, if they get bored or they change their mind or they want to go do something else, you're on the boat. Like
you're stuck.
You got to beach it and go play with the shells or something for a while before you can go back out. But on the pier, you don't really have to do that. And or in the surf as well, you can let them, let their mind wander. If they want to go look at something else, do something else, go do it with them. It's not that big of an investment. That's a great way to get folks started and get them exposed to
it.
And
they're actually waiving, all the fees for the participants on that day.
That's awesome.
To come on the pier. So
that is cool.
The pier has really, jumped into this with both feet to help out, and they're going to provide facilities for the kids to have. Maybe we're trying to get lunch too, but we're going to certainly have snacks and trying to get ice cream, that kind of stuff. So we're hoping all that'll come together. And
and tell me the dates on that again.
It'll be the last Saturday in September. I believe that's the 27th.
All right, so we're talking last Saturday in September. Now, what's going on right now on the pier? And so tell us a little bit about what's been happening, and tell us what you think is going to happen as we get closer to the end of the month.
Okay. Yeah, the Spanish mackerel have been particularly strong. I mentioned before last week, I think, that, there's a lot of smaller Spanish. Well, there's more and more larger ones mixed in with that, which is typically what we see as they're, the days are getting a little noticeably shorter now, and the larger female Spanish mackerel are, trying to tank up for their migration away for the winter time. And there's all these young of the year sardines and anchovies and stuff around the pier, and they just the lights draw those in, and then the mackerel follow them in, and the sharks and the dolphins come in eating on them, and it's, you know, and people are trying to catch them and keep them away from the fish and the dolphins, and it's just a lot of fun to jump into it, to even watch. You know, I mean, I talked to people that were just walking and viewing, and they were like, you know, I had no idea y'all had so much fun out here.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, typically a pretty good morning bite, and then it kind of dies off. And but it's been steady, you know, droves of these smaller Spanish mackerel coming through, and mixed in with that would be the you know, the hardtails, the blue runner, and also bluefish and ladyfish, and you know, a lot of other fun stuff too, spadefish, and even some occasionally redfish, speckled trout. You know, can be around for the more experienced anglers.
We'll talk about some of those inshore fish a little bit. Have you been seeing some redfish start to show up? I mean, we should start seeing some pretty big runs of those in September, right?
Yes, usually when we get into September, that's a good month for the pier and for the beaches as well. It seems like the numbers of slot or upper slot reds, you know, slightly oversized, start to show up in the shallow water, and they're doing the same kind of thing. They're feasting on this, you know, all this bait that's in the water, all these food items that they can, you know, pick up on. Plus, we're starting to see usually pompano are still active. A lot of bluefish are active in the surf this time of year, and they're just a ton of fun on top waters. On the pier, you can catch them all day long on live baits. On these small live baits, you let them sink deeper, you know, and there's bluefish and ladyfish and big hardtails all over it.
What about slot reds? Have you been seeing any keeper size reds coming over the rail?
Yes. In midsummer, a lot of times we'll see an influx around the state pier of a lot of rat reds that are undersized, but very quickly towards the end of August, early into September, in fact, most of the month of September into October, those larger size slot reds start to, you know, move along in the surf zone and just outside. So a lot of times they'll be under the mid platform or schooling around the mid platform of the pier. They're not always, you know, up close to the beach in the real skinny water, in the shallow water. So you may have to hunt around to find them. You know, and sometimes they're following bait schools of a particular type of bait or a particular size, L-wise or something like that, or they're swimming around under the mullet, you know, just any number of things that they may key off on, and you just need to kind of plug into that. You know, as hot as it's been, it's easy to do because it doesn't take a whole lot of activity to throw, you know, put a rod out and let it lean against the rail and just sit there and watch it and, you know, drink a cool beverage while you're waiting.
So when you're talking about those slot reds and keying in on them with the hot temperatures we're having, the hot water temperatures that we have, would you tell folks to focus on the deeper water first and kind of move their way into that surf zone?
Yeah, for two reasons. Mainly there's, you know, especially if they're going to, you know, focus on mackerel. Usually the mackerel runs are early in the day, often before sunup. If it's a bright sunny day, it may be over with by 7 o'clock, you know, as soon as the sun gets up good. Now, if it's a cloudy morning, then it may linger on into the morning for a while. And plus the air temperature stays a little cooler too, so it's a little more tolerable later into the morning. But those days when the sun comes up and it's, you know, bright and sunny by 8:30 and, you know, 9 o'clock, and it's already 85 degrees and there's not much breeze to stir things around, you know, the idea of, you know, chunking and retrieving lures, you know, cast after cast after cast, it really wears you out in a hurry. And a good respite from that is to, you know, take a break, look around, you know, check out the shallower waters and watch the mullet schools and the bait schools and just see how they're reacting, and just kind of settle into the complexion of the day, whatever's going on, and watch the water and see if you see any of these, you know, trout schools or redfish or the way that the bait reacts, like something is after them. And, then you can kind of change directions with your fishing and start some different things. Put a live bait down next to the piling. If you have bull minnows with you, start fishing around the pilings because the redfish eat bull minnows just as readily as the flounder do, it seems like.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different options right there at your feet. You don't
that's
really
a lot
have to.
Those are all good directions. What about tides, David? I mean, how much influence do the tides have on fishing at the pier?
The tide and these currents that we get occasionally both can really influence the fishing, in that it changes the water around the pier. Anywhere the fish are, especially the more mobile fish that are going to swim against the current or with the current, looking for food items, they're going to be more active on days when there's more current. If there's not a lot of current, then they're having to use more energy, to roam around looking for food. So that's, another thing that typically tends towards they're going to go out at first light, look for something to eat, then they're going to retreat back to where the water's deeper and they can just kind of digest their breakfast and take it easy the rest of the morning. These, other times, these when there's not a lot of wind or current at the pier to move the water, that's the time to focus on stuff like that are the fish that are less mobile, like the spadefish and the redfish and flounder and speckled trout, because usually the mackerel bite is over pretty quick. And then what'll happen a lot of times later in the afternoon, you might get a sea breeze kick up or maybe a thunderstorm will come in and the wind will pick up around it. And often that'll key off a bite as well. And this time of year, anything that breaks that dull pattern, that dog day kind of pattern where it's, hot and still and sunny, if the clouds move in, the wind picks up, the breeze picks up, that'll often, spark the fish to bite for a few days, no matter what the tide chart is saying. It's like because our tides are so slight along the coast anyway, at most, like this past week, about 1.5 feet, is a pretty strong tide for this area. Whereas last week we were in neap tides for 3 days in a row. So there's not a lot of water movement based on that. These other effects, these localized, meteorologically driven effects can really make a change too. And often we'll see changes too based on the direction that the wind's coming from. The easterly wind on the outgoing tide will bring, after a few hours, will bring the outflow from Perdido Pass all the way down to the Gulf State Park Pier, which is about 7 miles. Mm-hmm. And the water, you'll see a marked tide line, and then the water changes. And typically it's got, a little seaweed in it. There'll be more jellyfish in it, things like that in the bay water. And plus there's usually a temperature change. The Gulf water is more stable than the bay waters, which are shallower. So that those bay waters, and also the same thing happens with a west wind, where it's only 3 miles to Little Lagoon Pass, 4 miles to Little Lagoon Pass. And there's a pretty good outflow from that as well. And often that water coming out of Little Lagoon will affect the water around the pier. It'll move all the way down to the state pier. And you'll see a line of that brownish, brackish water coming out of the lagoon, just coming down the beach, where the water's usually nice and bright green. And then you see this brown streak down the middle of it. It looks like somebody poured a bunch of tea out there, iced tea or something in the water. But it may be 87, 89 degree water as opposed to the 85 degree water that the Gulf typically is.
Wow.
And that can, especially fish like king mackerel seem to really be, affected by that. And that may be one reason that we don't see many large kings this time of year. There's still the juvenile kings that are undersized are still around, mixed in with those Spanish mackerel, but they don't usually see the big kings unless the water cools off pretty good bit.
Well, David,
hopefully soon. Yeah, hopefully soon on that.
I feel like we've already gotten so many tips here, Butch, but we're gonna squeeze one more out of you, David. Butch, who's bringing us an onshore tip this week?
Yeah, man. This week's onshore tip is brought to us by Coastal Conservation of Alabama. Another great way to support conservation projects like the Claude Petite Flounder Hatchery and the University of South Alabama Cobia Tagging Project is through the purchase of a distinctive CCA Alabama Saltwater Fishing license plate. Just head over to the Alabama Department of Revenue's distinct license plate page at revenue.alabama.gov to get yours. What you think for a tip this week, Mr. David?
Yeah, if there's a success story in Alabama inshore fishing, it would have to be redfish. Part of that, the Mariculture Center in Gulf Shores, they experimented with releasing redfish for a while, but really the state's done a good job with the 3 fish limit and the 26-inch, slot, 16 to 26-inch slot. And, but people do commonly take the bull reds that are oversized and stuff like that. This time of year, we see a lot of, like we mentioned, the slot reds or slightly oversized slot reds schooling around the pier, feeding on these small minnows and stuff. And often they'll be there, just like the speckled trout. A lot of times you'll see fish there in the clear water, but you can't get them to bite. And often what you can do is, especially for the redfish, you can kind of like watch the shadow as it progresses during the day. It's sort of like a sundial, the way the shadow moves under the pier from the west side in the morning, and then it's under the pier at noon, and then it's over on the east side in the afternoon. And you can kind of follow that shadow along the edge and fish along the edges of the shadow with these live baits or drop a Gulf shrimp. That's what I like to do, is drag a Gulf shrimp around the pilings and in between them and stuff like that. And primarily targeting the big slot reds and flounder. And you can also do it with bull minnows or the little live alewives, whatever you can get. But sometimes you can change things up. People commonly come out there and you'll hear somebody caught a nice redfish on a piece of squid or something like that. Or even, occasionally, fish bites and a piece of shrimp while they're fishing for whiting or pompano, something like that. But a great way to target those redfish, especially when they're pretty big like that, is to use a chunk of fresh cut bait. And by fresh, I mean, like one buddy of mine, Tom, the other day was talking about, he had caught his mackerel and he was done for the day mackerel fishing in the morning. And he retreated to the shallower water, and he couldn't see the redfish, but he thought, well, maybe they're under the mid-platform, here. And he snagged one mullet and cut it up for cut bait and put some nice-sized strips down on the bottom. And from the first one, he hooked up and broke off, and then he tackled up a little heavier, and then he started catching them consistently. And that's something that I've seen time and time again that the experienced pier anglers would do. It's like you sort of change direction a little bit and give it this little kink. It's like you drop live shrimp down there and the little jacks eat it up. So you drop a bull minnow down there and pinfish eat the eyeballs out of it. So you just take a big chunk of mullet that it's going to take the pinfish a few minutes to eat on. And, you'll see nibble, and all of a sudden, wham, when that redfish crashes the party. And it's like all that nibbling going on attracts the attention of the larger game fish, and they come over to investigate. And it's like, the big bully comes in and snatches it away from them. And so that bully red comes in, not a bull red, but a bully red, and, takes it away from those little pinfish that are nibbling away at it. Because it's fresh, it's got a lot of good scent, and it stays on the hook better, stuff like that. So,
heck yeah, I like it, man.
Yeah, it commonly works well too. Just by changing the tactic a little bit.
Awesome. Well, that's a great tip as always, and a great report. Look forward to seeing what the salty kids end up catching, and what you guys do in the ACFA tournament, dude. We appreciate it. All
right, guys.
Talk soon. Thank you.
Okay, have a good one.
Butch, whenever I get done listening to David, I feel like I've opened up an Encyclopedia Britannica for pier fishing. That dude has got more knowledge then I mean, it's amazing. I love talking to him because he just there's so much more in there too, man. We could talk all day long with that guy.
There's no doubt in my mind about that.
Well, who we got next?
Man, let's head on down to see what Captain Chris Hood's doing. He runs that big Viking out of Dauphin Island, Alabama. It just takes time. What you say, Captain Chris?
Hey guys, how are y'all?
Oh man, just trying to get together a report. Things have been a little tough offshore, as you know. So we're just trying to pick everybody's brain and see what's been going on, man. What you guys been up to? I know you've been getting some other reports. What's going on in the offshore world?
Well, tough would be that would be an improvement for what it's been. It has been it's been a struggle. It's been a year throughout the year, leading up to our season, and then during our what we call our fishing season down here for offshore. There was a bunch of rain all over, basically the country. All that rain comes down. It comes down all the rivers, predominantly the Mississippi River, and it was at crazy record flood stage levels for a very long time. This year, and we were anticipating this. I don't think that we necessarily knew how bad it was going to be, but this is the first time that I can remember that the Independence Hub and Lloyd's Ridge was covered up with dirty water. It's pretty bad right now. There's been a little bit of activity trolling wise, around right there on the 100 fathom curve to the east. This time of year, typically the white marlin start to show up in decent numbers, but you'll right now, let's just say 8 boats go fishing, 7 of them are going to bomb out and not even see a scale, and you'll have 1 catch 2 or 3. So it's been pretty slow, to say the least.
That's tough. I mean, do you think that's affecting the same these same water conditions? Do you feel like that's affecting some of the amberjack fishing as well? I mean, you've been able to do a little bit of that. What's your amberjack season been like?
It's been slow. It's been slow for everybody. I mean, guys like Bill Staff on Sea Spray. I mean, he's been encouraging his guys to actually postpone their trips till later in the year, hopes that it'll get better. But honestly, and I don't know for certain, this is just one of my hypotheses. Something that I think could possibly attribute to it is we've had a lot of southwesterly flow this year, and so from the south, or basically coming from that direction, from the west is a lot of that water that was associated with that dead zone, and I think that could be attributed to how slow it's been for us. And those fish are just if they're in an area where they don't like it, where it's they can't really breathe all that well, they're just going to move. So I have a feeling that might have something to do with it. But then again, it could just be a slow year.
I think something's got to be attributing to it. And I think I'm with you. I think I said it either last week or the week before. Low oxygen, man. I can always remember this time of year, and this definitely worse this year. I hadn't been offshore a ton, but you start seeing those bulbs. That's what I call them. That dirty grass with the big bulbs. I don't know what they're called exactly, but you start seeing those, and to me, that just means low oxygen, and fishing is just tough when you start seeing those.
Yes, the river grass is the hyacinth grass, I believe, is what it is.
Yeah.
It comes out of the river. So, once you start seeing that, it's never a good sign.
Agreed.
Well, Chris, from listening to you and Butch talk, I mean, I'm kind of teetering on the edge here. I'm thinking about jumping.
Not yet. Don't jump yet, Joe.
Well, it sounds pretty bad. The future is bleak. We do have this storm that, for all intents and purposes, may be coming into the Gulf of Mexico beginning of next week. What do you think? How do you think that could affect things?
It majorly affects things as far as we're pertaining to offshore conditions. It's not something that you really wish for because we've all seen the just utter complete destruction that these things can do. But at the same time, it's kind of like a wildfire. Everything is destroyed, but the new life, it's prolific new life that comes afterwards. And when we've got conditions offshore like this, you'll hear guys, hate to say it, we kind of need a storm. It's true. it mixes all that water up. It pushes water from offshore, that blue, cleaner water, that more nutrient-rich water that we need. It pushes it in close, where it's over our fishable areas again. And it also kind of mixes that stuff up. It oxygenates the water. Most of the time, more often than not, you get a storm, especially a major storm that pushes through. You've got very good fishing afterwards, a month or so afterwards.
Well, Chris, I still hope it doesn't come our way, but that is
maybe it'll just give us a little bit of push from the southeast. Just stir it up just a little bit. Just get 10 foot seas, maybe 50-mile-an-hour winds. Just shake it up just a little bit.
Just a little slap on the rear end.
Little something.
That's exactly. Let's just hope for that.
Yeah.
I know. It's a long ways out, but I was just looking at the 12Z run of the Euro model, and it does not look too promising. As far as it looks like, and it's a long ways out. Definitely, if I can tell everybody, I'm probably not telling anybody anything they don't already know, but just keep up with it. Don't drop your guard down just because they're just talking about the East Coast.
Yeah.
That thing right now, there's some models projecting for it to hop over and get in the Gulf, and it's a steam bath out there right now. So it could get big again.
Chris, I'm glad you brought that up because this is something I see in just about every hurricane. We see guys. Butch, how many boats do you see sink in the marina?
A lot.
It happens a lot. A lot of guys don't move their boats.
Yeah.
Where do you guys like to move your boat to? I think that's one reason a lot of folks don't do it is they're not aware of the safe harbors around the area where they can get their boat in and weather the storm.
Well, what we do and what a lot of guys with the bigger sport fishing boats do is we haul our boat out, haul it out in the boat yard. Some of them strap them down, some of them don't. But, if you can get your boat on a trailer and get it up to safe, higher ground, maybe even, get some of those augers that you can anchor into the ground and actually get some, heavy-duty ratchet straps, secure it down to the ground. That would be ideal. Other things that you can do, as long as your bilge pumps are working and you have power to the boat, you can take your boat up into some of the little bayous and up the Alabama River, and there's all types of little nooks and crannies and places where you can set out 3 or 4 anchors and tie to some trees. Get good and secure. You definitely want, depending on the severity of the storm, leaving your boat just tied up in a marina is not ideal. If it's going to be a small Cat 1 or less, I'll take the boat to the wharf and double up the lines, fend her up, and that way you don't have to worry about the tide going up and down because it's a floating dock. A lot of times what sinks a boat is the tide goes up and the boat gets over a pylon. When the tide comes back down, it punches a hole through the hull.
Mm-hmm.
So, definitely take every step you possibly can, and, make sure that your insurance is up to date too and current, that they have your hurricane plan, because most insurance companies for any type of vessel do require a hurricane plan and that you stick to that hurricane plan.
Yeah, some of them make you evacuate if the wind's over X or something like that too, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Well, for us, and which we're, a little bit different situation, but I have to give them a specific and detailed hurricane plan of where we're going to go and what I'm going to do, and so on and so forth. So, and if we don't stick to that, then they don't have to pay the claim.
Wow. Yep. Definitely something to be thinking about if you haven't thought about it before. All right, Chris. Well, let's get an offshore tip from you. This week's offshore tip is brought to you by Hilton's Offshore Charts. And that's a pretty fitting sponsor for this week because you're going to talk a little bit about what to do after a storm. Like I say, hopefully we won't have one. Yep. But let's hear what you got for the folks if they're trying to navigate blue water after a hurricane or a tropical storm.
Well, anytime I go fishing, I use Hilton's. Like when I was figuring out where to go and we caught that winning fish, I use Hilton's. But particularly when you don't really have any fresh intel, when things have drastically changed from what they have been in a very short period of time, utilizing a service like Hilton's it's a no-brainer. You versus going out blind. I mean, that's what we used to do. We used to go out and, crap, we're in muddy water and we have no idea which way to go.
Right.
Let's go south.
To make, yeah, exactly. So south is worse, and so, now with Hilton's, it takes all the guesswork out, and, it's nice because we have sat internet on our boat, so I can pull it up real time. But, one thing you can do if you don't have that kind of capability is, when you're figuring out your plan is, screenshot everything, screenshot the chlorophyll shot, the altimetry shot, the current, the salinity, every one of the pages that could help you. I mean, if you get to an area and it's green, well, look at your chlorophyll and then compare it to your currents and figure out which way the current's running. And then you can go in the direction that you think that the current is running, and you can look at it real time, and you can obviously discern in some instances what the current's doing in a certain place, and that'll help you to to make the best possible judgment call that you can.
I like it. That's a great tip. Screenshot it, and man, you think about that, Butch. Think about all the years when we were just young kids out there fishing. It was like, where's blue water? Well, we went 80 miles and we never found it, and you never knew where it was. It was just like this mystery.
Yep.
Yep.
You're right.
It used to be you get intel from other guys that went fishing, but blue water can move, a line pushing can move, 50 miles in a day.
Oh yeah, man. So, some of that stuff rips.
Yeah. No pun intended.
Right.
So,
right.
So, it's just, Hilton's is an invaluable tool, and, Tom is great. He's one of the few services that you can call and the owner of the company picks up the phone and will sit there and talk to you and answer any question and try to help you to better understand his product. He'll take as much time as needed, and he is there all the time. He's passionate about it, and he wants to put the best product possible out there for his customers.
All right, Chris. Well, man, I hope it improves for you guys, and we can get
we look forward for a better report next time.
A real good report instead of a real bad report. But thanks for being with us. We always enjoy talking to you, and stay safe. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, guys. Y'all take care.
Thanks, Captain Chris. Talk soon.
All right, guys. Thank y'all.
All right, guys. And if you want more information on those Hilton offshore charts, just check them out at hiltonsoffshorecharts.com. Where are we headed next, Joe?
Let's go down and talk to a guy.
What nickname is he going to be this week?
He's got many names, but I call him the Marshal of the Mississippi South. Let's go talk with Captain Bobby Abruscato. Bobby, what's going on the inshore side of things?
That's because you can't call me some of the names that you normally call me on the air. That's the reason you got to use
Gotta be friendly. Gotta be family friendly.
Family friendly. Yeah. Oh man, I'll tell you, it's been good. I obviously the heat, it's hot. It's that time of year. I mean, down here you just expect it, but the pattern we've been on probably hasn't changed since the last time I talked to you guys, but we're fishing a lot of deep structure, mostly down in the Sound. The bay has been a little bit off, even though that I've caught some fish in the bay, on certain days, but mainly down in the Sound, in the structure down there is the reefs and the wrecks and things like that, in deeper water, 8 to 14 feet of water, which is all you're going to find down there in the Sound. And, shrimp is always good. We talk about that. You put shrimp on the hook, something's going to eat it. You're always going to catch something putting shrimp on there. The downside to that is this time of year, because there's so much other stuff in there, you catch a lot of unwanted species if you're targeting trout, so I go to croakers quite a bit this time of year. And I've just really in the last couple weeks or last month or so really been starting to use a lot of croakers, mixed in with the shrimp and sometimes exclusively using croakers. And that really cleans that bite up. You'll still catch the occasional shark and that sort of thing, sometimes a gaff top, but it's mainly trout. We can start putting those croakers on there and get the right the right situation. You can both tight line them, just basically put them out in I stick the rod in the rod holder and let the croaker kind of do the work while I'm slip corking either a croaker or a shrimp. So you kind of can do a lot of things with that croaker. I like having my hands on the rod when I'm fishing a shrimp because you can put a shrimp out there, as you guys well know, stick it in the rod holder, and if you're not paying attention to it, you're going to come back with a bare hook or a catfish or something. But that croaker, he's pretty well going to do the work for you down there, and nothing's going to happen. I mean, you're not going to lose that bait until you actually see the bite. That rod will bend over, and you can reach down and grab it then. So this is a fun time of year to do that. For me to do that, I enjoy doing that tight line fishing while I'm slip corking or popping cork fishing.
Man, I want to back you up a little bit to something you said. I have a tendency to talk on here about bluefish a lot. And, I mentioned in the previous show, I think I'm on a one-man mission to eradicate bluefish because I talk about how good they can be to eat. But you're gaff tops, and I'm telling you, I've said this before, I'll say it again. Dadgum gaff top shell catfish tastes better than a speckled trout or a redfish. Anybody can fight me on that anytime. I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
Slap him. He lost his mind.
Right. I'll tell you one thing about that. I got one thing to say about that. You can have all of them.
Hey, Joe. Hey, come with me. I'm going to fill your freezer up, brother, because I'm on a mission. Hey, if we can figure – if you can just advertise your recipe for those things, maybe you'll have the success Paul Prudhomme had with those things. And because I can tell you right now, brother, I got some places I can take you with some gaff tops right now where you will –
when you hook a gaff top, you think you've hooked a real nice redfish. They fight.
Yep, or a trout.
Yeah,
a trout. A lot. The initial fight and the run with those. I agree with you 100%. It's just the end of the fight that you start realizing that it's a gaff top because they start doing. I call it the kamikaze dive, where they're just diving straight down, and that's when your line comes back all slined up because they're diving straight down and it's rubbing on their body. But you're right. The initial strike and the fight, man, I'm going like, all right, you got a red, and pull it up, and it's a fight, all you want, and fight wise, then you just have to get them off the hook. And of course, in Joe's case, put them in the ice chest.
Hey, grease them if it's me. That's for sure. I'm telling you, a lot of people ask me, like, my wife loves to fish. I've gotten a lot of people into fishing and hunting, and they always ask me, like, how'd you get your wife into fishing? How'd you get those other folks into fishing? And my thing is, people like to eat what they catch. And if you are killing stuff and not eating it, or if you're catching something and not keeping it, a lot of times as folks' first time on the water, they get discouraged. And I took my wife. She said we were catching these big gaff tops, and I was letting them go. I was just like, nah, these things aren't any good. And when she just called me on it, she's like, how do you know they're not any good? Have you ever eaten them? And I said, well, no. I've always heard you can eat them, but I never have. And she said, well, why don't we keep one? And I was like, I couldn't argue with her. She was right. And sure enough, we iced a few of them. They're hard to clean. They're kind of funny to clean. But I'm telling you, I cook those things. I made fish tacos out of them, and I'll just hands down, it's better than speckled trout or redfish. I promise you.
Okay, all right, we're gonna take your word for it. The only thing I'll echo on is I have eaten gaff top before, but I didn't know it was gaff top, and actually it wasn't bad. I won't fill up this whole
truth
thing.
Comes
with the whole
out.
Story how
the truth comes out.
No, I didn't keep it. Somebody else picked a plate of fried fish in front of me at a function, and after I ate it, they said that was a gaff top, and I went, "What? You got to be kidding me!" But it was good enough that I finished the whole plate. So they could have told me it was speckled trout probably at that point. And I would have bought into it. So
all right,
and I'm still here. And that was a lot. Hey.
Enough with my gaff top caveat, but so it sounds like we're on a deep structure fin fish bite. Is artificial just a waste of time right now?
No, it's not. And I was going to go into that. I took some trips a couple times because I had to. Because of the logistics of the trip and that sort of thing. I ran up the bay a little bit, a couple trips, and we were, and it was kind of not an experimental mission because I fish up there quite a bit, but I haven't been up there. And we got on some phenomenal popping cork shrimp bites to the point to just, after everybody caught 10 or 15 or even 20 trout, I'm going like, why are we putting shrimp? So I started throwing a voodoo under a popping cork, and in just a few minutes had everybody back on, everybody on voodoo. So there's times to where, especially when there's a big push of trout behind shrimp, which is what's going on in the northern part of the bay right now, where you get into those and you can catch plenty plenty of fish on artificial bait, trout wise. And then we had the tournament this weekend. We had to catch trout, redfish, and flounder, and we caught our redfish all on artificial. We didn't use a shrimp after the first day of the tournament or a croaker or anything. We caught everything on artificial bait. So, trout probably a little bit, not as much so on artificial bait this time of year, but the other species, you can catch plenty of them using gulp. We caught them on gulp shrimp. We caught them on spoons. We caught them on swim baits. So, there's opportunities if you're an artificial bait purist or you're having trouble finding bait, which was a problem this past weekend. Don't not go fishing. You can still go catch fish, catch some slick lures. We caught some trout on slick lures, top waters. When we were catching trout early in the morning, one of the mornings we caught them on slicks and on top waters, So,
Bobby,
so there's other opportunities.
With the slick lure, were y'all catching them on the big slick or the little slick on a jig head?
The big slick, yeah, the big slick, the full size slick. With a 4/0 beast hook, with the 1/8 ounce weight on it, and just fishing. We were taking turns. One of us throwing top water, the other one was throwing that, just trying to finding out what the bigger fish were and some of the fish we were catching. But yeah, we were catching them with the full size slick.
You mentioned winning that tournament. What did it take to win?
We had, they had a number of different categories and combination of categories, and we won our main goal. We tried, it's kind of interesting now too. This was a tournament here to where I think it was the first tournament where it was all fish, all of the trout had to be in the slot. In other words, all the trout had to be under 22 inches. Which is interesting. That's the first time. We've been doing it with redfish forever, but it was kind of interesting with trout because nobody's got an experience on, what does a 22-inch trout weigh, where now we've been doing redfish for so long, what a good 26-inch redfish weighs. But so it's kind of interesting doing trout. But we got to the point where, we were getting like 21.5, 21.75-inch trout and just over and over and over on those. And we finally said, heck, we're just not going anywhere on trout. So let's pull off them. So we went redfishing to catch our redfish and flounder. And I think our creel with the 22-inch trout and a 26-inch red and about a 3-pound flounder was around 12 pounds or something like 12.5 pounds or something like that, and that's kind of where everybody was between 11 and 12.5 pounds, I think, is what the weights were, So it was somewhere in that neighborhood.
I'm just proud you caught a flounder.
Well, he didn't say he caught it.
Man, I'm telling you what. Hey, let me tell you something, dude. We caught 4 flounder. How about that? Yeah, man. I know it. We were too. We were tickled to death. And our buddy, we have a mutual friend named Terry Turner. Fortunately, Terry put us on the flounder. He was having a really good tournament on flounder, and him and Richard talked Saturday afternoon, and he was on a really good flounder bite and was nice enough, like you guys did with me with snapper not too long ago, to say, hey, you're welcome to come in here. And we said we just need one, and I think we caught 3 over there by him, so just want to give a shout out to him. I know he's a regular listener of you guys.
Yeah, actually, Terry gave us a Hey Cap question the other week, and he got himself a C-Deck ruler out of the deal. And speaking of that brings us to this week's Hey Cap question. This week is brought to us by Daycool Heating and Air. As the saying goes, if you don't like the weather in South Alabama, wait 10 minutes because it's going to change. Well, one of the things that is very predictable is the pricing at Daycool. They offer flat rate pricing, and they don't charge for after-hours calls. Let's face it, your HVAC always seems to act up when you need it the most. Don't get stuck between a rock and a hot place. Daycool offers flat $45 service calls, $59 tune-ups, and they offer free estimates on equipment replacement. The pros at Daycool have been serving Mobile and Baldwin counties for over a decade. Contact them at 251-633-5121 or check them out online at www.daycoolair.com or on the Daycool Heating and Air mobile app. They are license number AL07028. Bobby, you've got the Hey Cap question this week.
I like this question.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a timely question. Chase Mosley says, Hey Cap, at what water temperatures and salinity do we start to see more trout and redfish push back into the river?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, especially for this time of year, because that transition is going to start to happen. Well, right now we're over 75, and you're up in the low 80s in some places, mid 80s, depending on where you're fishing, which is the summertime pattern. You're going to be stuck with that until at least mid-October. It's going to be over 75. And at that point is when it starts to drop under 75, you'll start to see this transition of these fish moving from the bay to the river systems. So the 75-degree number is kind of a number to watch for. Usually, again, you never know around here, man. It could be late. It could be late October. It could be early. If we get some early cold fronts, it could be early October. But 75 degrees seems to be the magic number. When it starts to drop under that, that's when you'll start to see some fish start to move into the river systems. Not truly like load up in the river systems. It's kind of a transitional thing. You'll see them start to show up the mouths of the rivers, the flats adjacent to the mouths of the rivers, that sort of thing, because that shrimp migration will be that way. The key to this whole bay system is a shrimp migration, and that's what starts to happen. That, and then the second part of his question was asking about salinity. Usually it's got to be, about 15 parts per thousand. I don't measure salinity actually with a hygrometer. You could do that if you wanted to. I just watch the foam in my wake, and I know that doesn't sound real technical, but I can look at the foam in my wake and tell if I'm in salty enough water to catch trout. I know that's, you could dip. If you want to get real technical, you could dip and do all that. You really, to get the true salinity, you'd have to actually drop that hygrometer down deep to find out what the true salinity is. So that's what I use. When it starts to get down to 62 degrees, which is usually about early December, around December 1st, that's when they're all in the rivers. That's when everything's made that full transition, and we go into what I call a wintertime pattern, and that's when it's, the water temperature gets down to 62 degrees. By then we've had a freeze, usually. Again, you never know around here, but by then we've usually had a hard freeze. We've had a lot of cold nights. The days get shorter, so there's a lot less sunshine on the water all day. And so you'll see that water temperature really start to drop. So 62 is the real magic number. That's when I don't waste any time outside the rivers. I'm in the rivers, every day and never going outside the river. So, you'll just to kind of sum it up, you'll start to see a transition mid-October when it starts to fall under 75, and the true end of that transition is going to be, probably early December when the water temperature gets to 62 degrees.
Bobby, I want to key in on something you were talking about when you're talking about that transition into the river systems. I'm pretty good. Once you get them corralled and pinned up in there, I'm pretty good with them there. But where I struggle is you mentioned fishing the flats outside of those river systems, and that's where I'm lost. So when those fish are staging on those flats, talk to me about presentation, and then talk to me about how you're fishing it. Are you using your trollometer? Are you using your power poles? How exactly are you fishing those flats?
That's the kind of thing that we're doing, in the spring and the fall. That's that transitional period there. And when I said outside, but there's flat, when I say, I'm talking about that flats outside it, both inside and outside the river. So what you'll see is, places where there's shallow flats that are adjacent, depending on what river system you're in. Sometimes they can be 2 miles wide. Sometimes they may be a couple hundred yards wide, but there's shallow flats that run adjacent to the river channels. In other words, the river runs through those flats, and then on the edges of it, there's flats. Those places like Delvan Bay, Dog River is a real classic example where you have a channel running all the way up the river and flats on both sides. That's the kind of places I'm talking about, both inside and outside the river. And as far as like what I do, that's topwaters early in the morning, slick lures early in the morning, on into the day. That's the deal where you're looking for those, and in the fall particularly, you start to see these birds diving on shrimp that are being chased to the surface. And that all occurs on those type of those flats too. And those are the kind of places where you're looking for slicks, trout slicks, shiny spots on the water, and getting upwind from them with your popping corks or your slick lures or anything you throw. But that's what I'm doing then. And when you hit those schools, you're either drifting with the wind or kind of drift trolling with the trolling motor. When you hit those schools, that's when you're dropping your power poles, and you'll sit there, and that's when you can get on a real whack fest. So that's what you're doing in those transitional periods.
I love it.
That's all fairly shallow water fishing too. You're talking about those places I just mentioned to you that are classic examples of what I'm talking about. You're talking about water depths in the 2 to 5 foot range.
Yeah, it's important you bring that up, because for folks that are listening that are used to hearing about flats, they're thinking about like flip pallet on the
Yeah.
No. That's
on the
18
deck
inches
his
of
flats
water.
boat, poling
Yeah.
across.
we don't. Yeah, we don't have that kind of fishery here. You know what I'm saying? So
we got redneck flats around here.
Yeah,
Alabama
great.
flat.
Right.
That's gonna. Hey, JoJo, that's gonna stick. Butch, that's
Yep.
gonna stick.
Redneck
Redneck flat
flats.
fishing. Yeah, that's blue collar flats fishing. That's exactly right. Shallow
Blue
water.
collar flats fishing.
I just picked up my new skeeter, and we were talking about that. And he said, and my skeeter rep was telling me, we can, I think you'll be able to run in about 12 inches of water. But let me tell you something in Alabama. If I'm in 12 inches of water, I've made a mistake.
We got a problem. That's
I'm
right.
not where I'm supposed to be because I don't, no need to fish in 12 inches of water in Alabama. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I've made a wrong turn or something if I'm in 12 inches of water,
That's for
So,
sure.
we're talking about those depths,
Well, Bobby, as always, buddy, we sure enjoyed having you on, and thanks for the report. If folks want to get in touch with you at A-Team Fishing, book something, you got a few dates open in September. Well, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, September is open. I'm starting to book up pretty good for later in the fall and winter, but September's open, and the easiest way to get us is just on the website, which is A-Team Fishing, like the old Mr. T show, ateamfishing.com, and there's a contact us tab that's got all the contact information. Can I go back real quick to the Hey Cap question? Because I think I left off one thing that's important and I want to mention about Chad's questions.
Yeah, go
when we
ahead.
were talking about salinity. Real quick, I just want to touch one thing on salinity. The true barometer of salinity in our river systems, if you really just want to get something, you don't use a hygrometer, you don't want to use the high-tech hygrometer or the low-tech bobby and the foam in the wake. Just look at the pool at Berry Steam Plant. If it's under about 5 feet, there's plenty of salinity in all of our local rivers. So just keep your eye on that pool right there. It's 5 feet is kind of the magic number. And typically in the fall and even in the early part of the winter, you'll see that number being down in the 2 and 3 and 4 foot range.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry about that. I wanted to make sure I got touched on
you're
that.
good.
No,
there, so.
that's great. That's great. All right.
Yep.
Well, thank you,
Good
sir.
question.
We will we'll talk to you again soon.
Hope so. Sounds good, guys. Thanks.
All right, Captain Bobby, keep whacking them.
Butch, that was a cool question for the Hey Cap.
It was an awesome question. I knew Captain Bobby was going to nail it, so I was super fired up about that one. Thank you, Chase Mosley, for that question. And Chase submitted his question actually on a Facebook post that I posted asking for Hey Cap questions. He's going to get one of those cool CCA Alabama C-Deck fish rulers.
And
you can also,
I'm still waiting to get mine.
I think yours actually got gave away. No joke. Apologize for that, but I'll buy you one for your birthday. How about that?
I like that. My birthday is in May, so
yeah,
I'll
next year.
I'll be counting down the days.
Sounds good. And you guys can also get those Hey Cap questions in if you email us at alabama@bestfishingreport.com. Hey Cap. I like those Hey Cap questions.
Probably one of my favorite parts of the podcast.
Hey Cap.
I like hearing from folks, and
Me too.
they ask questions I would never think to ask, and
Agreed. I
always
learn
good to
something
see
every
a
time.
different perspective. So thank y'all for sending those in.
Yep,
Well, Butch,
sure.
what'd you learn today, man?
Man, I thought it was really cool about the Berry Steam Plant thing that Captain Bobby said at the very end, where he amended his tip almost.
Yeah.
Who would know that really besides Captain Bobby? I mean,
That's like 25 years or more, maybe more. Who knows? I can't tell how old Bobby is. He's just got that look, he could be 35.
Yeah. You never know. It could be.
He's so energetic. That's years. That's decades of fishing experience condensed down into a correlation that he's been able to make. That, I mean, golly, that's so cool. You could share something like that. And I think for me, what I learned is same kind of thing from David Thornton. When he's talked about catching those redfish in the shadows, that's something that you can walk out on that pier 100 times and never make that correlation.
We'll never just notice it because
right. For him to share that with everybody, and it's going to be a bunch of people like in the shadows.
Oh, right. We're like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Got it from David's dinosaur brain.
Oh man. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up this week, folks. Thanks for subscribing, rating, and reviewing wherever you listen to podcasts, whatever podcatcher you choose. I personally like iTunes. We certainly appreciate all the reviews. We read them every week. It really gets us pumped, and appreciate all the kind words over there. If you would like us to email you the podcast, just head over to greatdaysoutdoors.com/ASFR, and we'll send you the new show each week. Butch, you got anything else?
Keep whacking them. This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report is brought to you by Foster Contracting, Fortified Roofing Pros. Did you know you could save up to 40% on your homeowner's insurance with a fortified roof? Learn more at fortifiedroofingpros.com or call them at 251-973-9999.
And also A-Team Fishing Adventures. Check them out online at www.ateamfishing.com or contact them at 251-661-7696. And also KillerDock. Are you suffering from dock dysfunction? Check out a full line of dock enhancement at KillerDock.com. That's KillerDock.com.
This week's Saltwater Fishing Report is brought to you by Angelo Depaola, the Coastal Connection with eXp Realty, your boating and beach property specialist. Check me out on Facebook at Angelo Depaola Realtor, the Coastal Connection, or call me direct at 850-287-3440.
And also Great Days Outdoors, the South's finest hunting and fishing magazine. Pick up your copy wherever magazines are sold or check them out at greatdaysoutdoors.com. And also brought to you by CCA Alabama. Pick up your distinctive Alabama saltwater fishing license plate at revenue.alabama.gov. This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report was brought to you by me, Joe Baya, and National Land Realty. If I can help you in any way with the purchase or sale of land in Alabama or Florida, whether it's timberland, farmland, recreational land like hunting land, or even agricultural land or ranch land like horse farm, drop me a message at jbaya@nationalland.com. That's JBAYA at nationalland.com.